Do your intro, dude. Do your thing. Do your spiel. Welcome back, folks, and do that thing.
Is that how I sound?
Yeah.
Hey, folks, welcome on in. This is episode, I think, number 4, to be honest.
It is.
All right, good. Thanks for the fact check there. My name is Ben. This is my co-founder and co-host here, Brennan, and we are
Hello.
Field IQ. Very exciting news right off the rip. We have signed a client and want to talk with y'all about what was the process like. How did we get from building our product to be able to demo the actual demonstration, and then our learnings from this process. So, uh, without further ado, Brennan, how are you feeling today? What's up, man?
Feeling good, man. Feeling good, dude. I'm jacked up, ready to rock and roll. Highly caffeinated as usual,
Okay,
but excited to talk about like change up the pace of the conversation a little bit, start focusing on some different aspects of the business side of things. Um, yeah, feeling good.
nice. So, yeah, what we'll talk about is like I think just like right off the rip, if y'all have tuned in before, you know that we put it in a lot of work in as far as like building out some of the infrastructure with what we're doing, and we spent a lot of time talking about like building our proof of concepts, validating what we were going through. We're not going to go ahead and rehash a lot of that. What we're going to talk about specifically is like the sales motion, um, how we set up the sales meeting, what the kind of goals were, and what we would change and what we would do differently. So I guess first things first, let's talk about just like the prep for doing a demonstration for our AI software. So um, first thing, I think that it turned out really nice and definitely helped out with the flow was we built out demo products and demo websites. So Brennan, show the people what we did and kind of the thinking behind this. What
Yeah, you got it. Right. So Ben and I have a history, a sales background predominantly in SaaS, right? So software as a service. And how people, well, how we sell in that space is you demo the product, right? So like if you're selling fitness software, your sales process will be like a disco, and then you hop into the demo and walk them through what your software is capable of and how it can provide value to them, et cetera, right? So it only seemed natural to build our own demo site with our own demo agents. So this is our just highly professional real company called
yeah,
Trust HVAC.
that's me shaking hands there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this model. Uh,
But so I put together just like this is a super stock website, but the cool thing about it is our chat agent is embedded inside of the demo site. So I can walk them through what it would look like to use our chat agent, Rachel, and help them or help create a vision or tell a story about how it could be customized to them. We don't really need to walk through it. I can just, but it is pretty conversational. So if I say, "Hey, I need a new AC system," um, it'll start walking through my contact information, so we can capture that data, what specific type of unit I'm looking at, and then there's some really cool features as well that we have on the back end that we can go into later if we need to. But this is how we demo our products, and then there's a phone number that we have that the prospect can call live on our demo to speak to our voice agent, Sarah. So we have both of our products built into our demo site that will allow them to test it live on the call to get that buy-in for them. And that like definitely like we've talked about in the other episodes, right? Like that took the most time is just like building these things out. I know a lot of people build it after, but this is just how we were raised in the corporate world to have like the product to show and provide value that way. And that's kind of what we built out.
yeah, I think the big thing for me here is like I think this is super helpful for having your prospects visualize what it would look like to implement your services, right? Like
Yeah.
as much as you can get it to be able to mirror what their current client experience looks like, the better. And there's going to be a fine line here. Like some of this stuff, like for our chat agent, is it feels like a movie set, right? Things are built to be able to look nice, but the calendar integration isn't final state. It pushes to like a Gmail calendar, and we know that we're not going to be using Gmail for like our clients. So try to be able to get flows that mirror things, but maybe aren't fully baked out because it doesn't need to be. Because this isn't a
Hmm.
live client, this isn't where like the endpoint will be. But just getting the bones here once again to be able to show what the products can do. We can voice over a lot of like the build out, having them visualize a little bit more. But this is a great place to be able to start. Makes the demo process a whole lot easier, especially when you're
Hmm.
dealing with abstract concepts like AI.
Yeah. A lot
But
of things happen too, like when you actually have something to show and work in live, like questions will naturally come up. Like, oh, can it do this? And can it confirm this data? And it'd be like, absolutely, we can do that. And here's how we would do that. Is that valuable to you? Right. So it gives us like, it just helps with the cadence of the conversations and allows us to get more buy-in throughout it. So when we ask for a close, it's a lot easier.
yeah.
Yeah, that's our lovely demo site.
Uh, the second thing that we did was to be able to talk about, I think it's important to be able to tell your story and where we came from, what the goals are, and the best way to be able to do it. Every great meeting has a deck to be able to walk through. So we spent some time building out a presentation deck to be able to help us tell that story and help visualize things a little bit further.
So this is a demo deck that we put together. So how the conversation will go as you do like, build some rapport, ask some discovery questions, et cetera, then hop into the deck to show them and walk them through the journey, right? So our opening title page, we have an agenda that we set, so they know what to expect in our conversation. Our team, so where we came from, how we got started, what our roles are, et cetera. And then the problems that we solve for. So like here are the specific pain points that we keep hearing over and over again. So these are the problems that we develop for.
So I think I want to touch on this. This is probably one of the most important slides to be able to build out to show you've done your homework and your research. What's really cool about this is if you've done discovery on the front end of the call as well, they've already validated that they have some of these problems, right? And so you
Mhm.
could tie that into the conversation. And if if they don't, you could breeze right past it, right? Like this is where you get to be able to show your homework, but also customize a little bit, make sure that the shoe fits the foot, as
Correct.
some people may or may not say.
So exactly. And then the natural next slide would be like why we're valuable, right? So like here are the problems, and this is why what we built is valuable for those problems. And then we'll move on into our actual agents that we've developed. They're the build specs, post call processes. We have that for a few different agents. For our chat assistant, just to kind of break down what it is they're capable of, how they were developed, and like what the post call process, post chat process will look like for you. And then our API access, so things that come stock like out of the gate or out of the box rather with the products, and then things that we can do for custom development at an additional price.
I think all these
Um,
slides when we're talking about the product too is I obviously like we demoed, but like we kind of mentioned earlier, it's a it's a fake house sometimes with empty rooms. And so what you want to be able to talk to your clients about is like how you can customize the carpets, what kind of furniture you could add
yeah,
in, and have them start visualizing what they could or couldn't do, and have them ask questions through there too. So that way you can get some cool ideas about maybe things you didn't think about before. But
for sure.
you're teaching them how to be able to think about your products and how to be able to problem solve around what they have too. And that should be like a collaborative space.
Definitely. So the next section would be the onboarding. So we should have mentioned this earlier, but like there's three parts to this deck. The first deck is going to be like introduction, and then value propositioning. The second section is going to be onboarding. So like once you get buy-in, or like once, here's the value, here's what we offer. Onboarding is how we implement it, and then the steps of that implementation, what the support is going to look like, etc. So then we walk through that part. We break it down into three phases. So we have phase one, which is our information gathering and knowledge base creation. Phase two, which is integration and testing. And then phase three, which is going live and post-launch maintenance. So what we decided to do was include like 8 hours per client account per month for just monthly maintenance. So things like, if you have if your service offering changes, if there's some sort of bug on your end or on our end, like we can fix that. Just 8 hours of generalized developer maintenance on your account for the life of your account with us per month. It's pretty nice. A lot of people like that. Then after onboarding, we go into pricing, which is secret, but that's the next step naturally within the deck. And then after that, we start going into closing.
Brendan, how many demos do you think you've run in the past 10 years?
Uh, oh man, I don't know. It's in the thousands. It has to be in the thousands.
Yeah,
It has to be. Like, I mean, it has to be in the thousands. Probably like the low thousands.
yeah. Wild to be able to think about. I think,
I never thought
um,
about that before.
right? I
Yeah,
it's been a minute. I've been doing software demos for the last year at a different company, and then but I was a sales manager. But before that, 3 years of doing software demos, and I've got a few hundred under my belt. Probably.
you got more than that. You gotta,
Okay.
dude.
Oh, stop
If
it.
you run like what? I mean, you do
Oh,
the
stop
math
it.
on that. You, you just do the math. Like, if you're doing, it's just the last company that I was at, and I was doing, I'll be conservative and say 5 demos a week.
Yeah.
That's 20 demos a month times 12 months. And I was there for 2.5 years. That's just
Yeah.
one company, right?
Yeah.
So like that for real companies. It's a lot of demos, dude.
That's a lot of demos. So
That's a lot of demos.
I think the the big thing is like once you once you run through that, like you get more comfortable with the flow. But the most important part, I think, for these demos and like where we're really coming from and why we were prepping so hard on this is like we wanted to be able to set the stage, understand their problems, show what we could solve for, and then get firm next steps. And so
Yeah,
like when we were prepping for this, uh Bernie, you want to let's talk about a little bit about who we were prepping for and kind of their background and like
for sure.
tell that story a little bit too.
Yeah, so the client that we closed was via networking. And he is actually in an interesting spot. So like out of the gate, we were like, this is going to be our target ICP. This is going to be like what we would imagine their annual revenue to be. But he doesn't have his business open yet. He's actually opening in his grand opening will be next month. And so that kind of changed some of the um our idea on like what he would want and how it would be implemented and when. But his need, because it's a brand new business, right? Like he's not going to have like high inbound call volume out of the gate, right? That's something that happens as you scale up. And it's concerted marketing efforts and things like that. So like his immediate need wasn't Sarah or our voice agent. His immediate need was like web capture, web traffic capture. And he's part of a franchise, and the tools that they are using for their web chat are super archaic, right? So I made a video about this actually pretty recently about the differences between a standard chatbot and then like an AI powered um, chat assistant. So like that uses a large language model. And so he loved the chat agent because the chat agent was conversational. There's like the Google map is embedded into the conversation itself. There's data enrichment on the back end with Zillow and Redfin. and it's built specifically for HVAC, right? So he really enjoyed that. Um, and then he wants to scale to the voice agent once he starts receiving inbound calls, probably a couple months after his launch, because it's a two-man operation right now. And there's going to be a point in time where they don't want to get all those calls. They don't want to screen all these inbound calls and have all these conversations while they're also on the job doing the tech work, right? So yeah, that's a little bit of background about our client.
Nice. And yeah, I think the interesting thing there is like he's also very tech savvy. And that was like one of the things
Mhm.
that was interesting to me, kind of just like right off the rip, was he came in very curious and very forward thinking with a lot of this stuff
Yeah,
and had like that early adopter mentality that, I mean, is for what we're doing gold, right? Because you get
perfect.
somebody like
Yeah,
that and really partner with them. So I felt really lucky to be able to talk with him as we're going through this. But
definitely.
let's talk about the nitty gritty, man. The actual demo. When we did all this prep, we did all this you know stuff to be able to be prepared for this call, and we're talking combined thousands of demos that have been run, and now it comes down to this one. So
Yeah,
let's the details. So we scheduled this thing for on the
30
calendar,
minutes.
right off the rip. Big mistake. 30 minutes on the calendar.
Yeah.
Which not not good. A quick meeting is 45 minutes. A standard would be an hour. And so luckily we were able to get on and be able to talk through like, hey, what's your hard stop? Like, what do you have to get off this call? So we knew. And that's when we knew we had an hour and we kind of just like, you know, breathe easy a little bit, knowing that
Yeah.
we no longer have this like hard deadline with it. Um, and then it was, yeah, Brennan, myself, and then our prospect that we were talking to. So just the three of us. I was the odd man out because Brennan and was already connected with our prospect. So they had reports just right off the rip. I had to be able to come in and tell a little bit more about my backstory. So I think the important things for me there was just telling like, you know, what am I contributing? What am I doing in this conversation? And go from there. So that was an interesting take on my end. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, so overall holistically, right? Like the demo went really well. There is some when you're demoing your own software for the first time, like there's absolutely like a higher level of anxiety and nerves as if you're just some sales rep demoing some other dude's product you never actually met before because you're like 6 degrees removed from him.
yeah,
Much different when you're the one building it and then like showing it to somebody. So how the demo went holistically overall, it went really well. There was one big hiccup, which was our voice agent was horrible. Like it
yeah,
was
yeah,
she I don't know. It's like I offended her somehow, and she was trying to get back at me. Like
yeah.
that's what happened.
It
It
was
felt
personal.
personal. It
It
was
was personal.
personal because like I tested her. Like I had 27 phone calls logged in my phone in my phone logs on my cell phone, and she was great. I was like, awesome. He's gonna love this. And get to the testing phase, right? And like we're on a demo site, it's like, all right, give her a call, see how this goes.
And
Horrible. Shit the
to be
bed.
able to set the
Totally bad.
stage on this too, when we were prepping for this, we're this is the wow moment. We are
Yeah.
expecting everything up to this
Yeah.
has been like dry, like feeling like we're reading out a history book, talking about our story, what we saw for. And this is like the moment where we are showing like cutting edge tech for
four
the first
months
time. Oh
of
yeah.
development.
I mean, we're
It's like, oh, he doesn't mean he's the chat agent isn't even that cool. Wait till you talk to Sarah, right?
yeah,
Like it's gonna blow your mind. And then it was bad. It was like hallucination after hallucination, endless loops, like interruptions. It was so bad. Um, But the good news, right? The good news is
yeah.
that he still saw the value in it, right? Which was like great because I promise that she hasn't done this before. And we're gonna make it better. But he saw the value. Overall, I
Yep.
saw the value and like really wanted to lean heavily into the chat agent, which was good. So like at the end of that call, we got a lot of great feedback, which we'll talk about in a second. But most importantly, we got a verbal commitment from him, and set a hard calendar meeting for the following week. He's like, "Hey
Yeah.
guys, I like this. Let's talk about like onboarding priorities, next steps, and then tweak your voice agent, and I can run through it again and see how that goes."
Yeah. And
So
so I think one thing to be able to mention there too is like we knew we had an hour, but even with everything, this was our first time running through things. And by the time we got to the onboarding, before we even got to pricing, there was probably about 10 minutes left in the
yeah,
meeting. And so we did a high level overview of onboarding, but didn't want to get into pricing because you never want that to be like the last
you
thing
rush through.
that you rush through and that you leave with,
Yeah.
and you don't even have time to negotiate or work on anything. So it's just like, hey, you know, what can we do to be able to get a commitment for a reset to talk about onboarding and pricing and be able to go from there. And so
Mhm.
that was good to be able to see. I think that if we're talking about or
Well, yeah, so like that was great. And then so on our next meeting, which was yesterday, we re-demoed our voice agent, and flawless. Like just couldn't be more proud of her. She did phenomenal. He loved it. He was super impressed. We got the reaction out of him that we were really hoping we got the first call. But this one was even better because the agent was completely modified, changed, etc., streamlined. And then we also demoed something we're working on, another project, which was an outbound agent. Um, he thought that was really cool too. And we can talk more about that later. We're developing it now more. It was like super preliminary, like early stage V1, but it's really cool case. There's a cool
use
case study
case.
for it, use case
Yep.
for it, really cool use case for it. But then we discussed pricing and got his signature. So good to go. We're now in the process of onboarding him, and with a go live date for his launch next month, which super excited about. Um, Overall, it was great. You know, good learning experience for sure.
Yep. Yeah, I think when we're talking about like the learnings and everything that we're pulling out of like the demo itself, the conversation, and how we conducted things,
Hmm.
for me, like it was great. I think I talked about it like up front, but I think some of it was just the value of talking to somebody that is forward thinking and an early adopter with technology, right? Because
Yeah.
um, they see things in a different kind of way and can really, like I said, great partner to be able to work with. And I think some specifics of that um, is one, like you talked about it a second ago, the outbound agent, right? So we're showing what an outbound phone call could be like, and this is to be able to set just a general like appointment for an HVAC shop, right? Like to be able to call out, be able to get information, explain what a tune-up is. Most people don't know, and to be able to schedule something, right?
Hmm.
Super simple, straightforward. And immediately he's like, you know what? This would actually be really good for like calling after these appointments are completed to be able to ask, like, hey, did the technician wear booties on their shoes like while they were in their house? Did they clean up after themselves? Did they do boom, boom, boom? It's called like happy checks, right? And I was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense because happy checks are one of those things that you could use to be able to make sure that you are solving client issues before they pop up as a negative review on Yelp, right? That you are asking for referrals, maybe talking about additional products that your technician didn't, mention or say that you guys offered. And so there's all these benefits from it, but it's one of the first things that gets dropped by businesses because they get too busy. So
Yeah.
um, I'm like,
So like
man,
the
this is great. Like this is the kind of feedback that I wasn't expecting and love to be able to
yeah,
get.
definitely. I think that the two things that were the most valuable for me in terms of like what I learned from this whole process, from like early conversations to assigned client with him, has been like like the feedback overall on what we've developed and why, right? So like Ben and I went in from day one, like with a gut feeling that this is where we should probably be focusing our attention on because of X, Y, and Z. And these are loosely what we think their pain points are based off of conversations. And then he validated all of it, right? And then some. So that for me was like awesome. Like follow your gut. It feels good to be validated too. And then the second one was actually like because of that demo, found out that Sarah was not ready for market.
Yeah,
And that there was some work that needed to be done because you can get into as a prompt engineer, like you're like a prompt engineering, right? Like if you're the one doing it every day, nonstop, trying to tweak her and tweak her and tweak her, you have bias towards her and like know what questions to ask to get the
right.
response that you want. But anybody else who's just calling doesn't have that bias. And so like it allowed me to go back in and like completely redo it, redid the entire prompt all over again, trimmed a lot of fat, changed out the voice model, like did all these different tweaks, and now she's great and super happy that even though it was like really bad, like it was awkward and horrible live for that to happen, overall it's great because now we have a better product.
Yeah,
And so that was a big takeaway for me.
yeah. I mean, I think that would be my recommendation for anybody that's doing this on your own and trying to be able to try to replicate something. I would say elicit help from friends, family, people that aren't you to be able to help with testing because
Hmm.
there's just going to be situations that happen in real in-game time scenarios that you didn't prepare for because you didn't think about it because you're you and you also
Yeah.
did the programming on it. So that was I agree. I think for me, one of the learning things, this is just kind of some introspection as a human. But I mean, you mentioned it when it's different when you're demoing and you're showing your product and what you created. And so for me, when I'm on that demo and then our product is failing horribly, I'm talking just this is one of the worst experiences that I've had in a very long time. My face was beet red, like I'm sweating. I
It was
feel like
sheet
stomach
white,
cramp.
dude.
Dude,
You had
I
no blood in your
was
face.
I was stomach cramping. I just wanted to like log off the call and just be like, you know what? Nah, I'm gonna go work at Denny's. Like they got unlimited pancakes on
I'm
Tuesdays. Like this is not
a
it.
failure. I'm never
Yeah,
doing
like
this again.
oh man, my
My
dad was
life is a
right. Like,
lie.
yeah, it's
My
whatever,
dad
man.
was right. That's why he
It,
left.
yeah, I wanted to be able to dump the call. But what was interesting was right after that, we demoed the chat agent, and he was like, "Man, this is awesome. This is so great." And it was like, and for me, it was one of those things of like, man, I need to stay present while I'm on these calls. I need to stay
Mhm.
present while we're talking through things, while we're getting feedback, even when things aren't going well or as planned or whatever else, because there's still going to be value in the conversation. There's still like value in these different things. But if I'm not present for them, it's not going to matter. So really kind of changing my own tune with how I'm conducting things is going to be very important. So that was a big takeaway for me. Um,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
also just like sales in general, right? Because like if you've ever demoed a software and like the demo instance glitches live on a demo and you have to come up on your fly like, oh, this is a demo environment. It's a sandbox account. It's actually not connected to the live servers. So sometimes you get these glitches. Like you have to be able to do that, right? So like when that happened with me, like when I was on my end, I was mortified inside, but I was laughing outside. I was like, oh, this is great, isn't it? Like audibly saying, like trying to de-stimulate how awkward and terrible I felt by saying things like, oh yeah, these things happen. Like, she'll be better. It's just, it's demo, right? But I was mortified. So
yeah,
I guess the takeaway is like being able to like pivot. Like all those emotions are super okay to feel. I feel them
yeah.
outwardly showing confidence and like, like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like this happens from time to time. And then pivoting. Just in sales
Because
in general. Cool.
at the end of the day, like it is all the things that you're feeling is like and everything that I felt was true. Like the things that we had built, it wasn't working and it wasn't functioning. And this wasn't a product that could be reliable or that we could sell and that we needed to
Mhm.
fix it. All of those things were true, but I we weren't going to fix it while we were on the demo right there. Like it's not going to
Yeah.
change like the rest of that conversation. So kind of
Hmm.
just like setting that side for at least 30 minutes while we wrap up this call and then coming back to it, unpacking it, creating a plan, which is what we ended up doing, right? And
Hmm.
what we talked about was very beneficial. Um, yeah, just like breathe for a second and be able to be present, I think
Just
was
chill.
was
Yeah.
big. Other things we mentioned up front, like we ran out of time. I think for me, it was just a really good example of like I can ramble like the best of them. And so there's this saying of be brief, be brilliant, be gone. And that's what like I needed to adopt when we're telling our story, when we're giving like details about like what we could do, is just like cut the fluff, right? Be brief about what we're saying, make sure it's sharp, and then get out of there, right? Like we want to be
Yeah.
able to have the majority of the phone call be them talking about their problems or how they can customize things and figuring
Hmm.
out next steps for them and the products that they want. It shouldn't be about me going into monologue mode, right? And dominating the combo. So that
Yeah.
was something that really stood out to me on that. And I think it's going to be that's going to be a work in progress. We'll see how that goes. I'm not
Hmm.
sure if I can turn
I mean,
that on right now.
we've had another demo since then that we're going to cover in another podcast, and that one went really well too. But yeah, first you can get the rule of thumb is you want to be talking 40%, you want them to be talking 60%, right?
Yeah.
And like where you decide to talk has an impact on where the call goes. But again, first demo, proud of it. It's our baby. Nervous, like I think it was really good for the first whack at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think,
Um,
but the best thing that I could say is like, um, I'm very grateful that we were prepared with our demo deck to be able to walk through things.
yes.
I think it answered a lot of like questions. There was a lot of time for dialogue with things. I love the demo site. It really made everything feel coherent and like part of this HVAC business. We're trying to be able to differentiate ourselves by saying we work with HVAC, we understand HVAC, and so everything we do needs to be able to resemble that. And I think that went really well. So all in all,
Mhm.
good. I think time management was poor. We'll be able to fix that. I think the product demo. Look, sometimes the product's going to be weird on demos. It's not necessarily that for me. It's like how we conduct
How you
ourselves
handle it?
during that.
Yeah.
Those are the big takeaways. But at the end of the day, like killed it, man. Love the fact that we're onto something. I think for closing remarks, like for me, this is a huge win and validation in our books. Like Brennan, we sat down and we talked about like the opportunity here. And when
Hmm.
we were having conversations with people and when we were trying to be able to get feedback on things, it was great, right? But
Yeah.
it's
Like the
different when you're asking for a signature and it
well,
it hits differently.
definitely. And like not only the confirmation bias, but like the it was so valuable, like to actually sit down with a prospect and for them to pitch us ideas on how they could use or we could build our products better for different applications, which tells me that this works, people want it, right? And the potential is a lot bigger than you and I thought originally. It's
Yeah.
just like, who wants to be the first one to do it?
Yeah.
you know, but it's yeah, just validate this confirmation bias, validation throughout the whole experience.
Yeah. I think, you know, the quote from one of our demos yesterday was he's been talking to multiple people trying to be able to think about his vision for 2025. And what he told us was that nobody else is offering solutions like this in the industry right now. And we are light years ahead of what other people are doing. And it's
Hmm.
like when you're
This is
sitting
great.
down and you're talking to somebody that you believe to be your ICP and they're hitting you with that statement, it's like, man,
Doing something right.
good, good. Right.
Yeah.
Now we just said we need to be able to execute reliably on these ideas
Mhm.
that we have and what's in front of us. And I think for me, I'm very excited about uh, from the positive reaction that we've already gotten and what we're doing, to be able to see the dots connect as more and more people are aware that this is a option for their business, or this is something that is available to them. Because like our gut was saying, like this industry is underserved with technology. And so to be able
Mhm.
to come in with new, fresh ideas and new way of doing business, I think it's going to be really cool to be able to see where this goes. But stoked about it,
Agreed.
and can't wait to be able to see more.
Cool. Should we end on that note?
Sure, we can end on that. But as always, thanks for dude, brother. Uh,
Brother.
but as always, oh, whatever. Thanks for tuning in. We'll keep you all updated. Feel free to be able to reach out to us here or on LinkedIn with any questions or suggestions for content in the future. But other than that, we will see you all next time.